Welcome to A Parenting Affair. Today I'd like to start off by introducing myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Schubert, and I'm not just an alienated parent, but I'm also a left behind one as well. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the differences of the two terms I just mentioned, I'll try to explain. An alienated parent is someone whose former partner or spouse intentionally tries to get their children to hate the other parents through lies and manipulation. However, a left behind parent is a mother or father whose children were abducted by the aggressor parent, either locally, nationally, and in some cases even internationally. Now, having said this, I want you to know I understand the fear and anxiety each of you goes through after losing your child due to either of these actions. Now, these are understandably natural reactions which we all go through. However, it's how we deal with these emotions that's one of the most important issues facing us. Now, before I go any further, let me explain to those of you who don't know my story. Back in 2007, my firstborn daughter and stepson were abducted by their mother and spirited away from the U.S. to an overseas country. Back then, I didn't know I had certain rights in order to have them come back. It took me about 4 months before I learned about the International Hague Convention courts. With the help of the U.S. Department of State, an application was lodged seeking their return. It would take a total of 16 months of fighting in the courts over there, but in the end, I was successful in obtaining an order of return. Unfortunately, it was short lived because a family court judge here ruled that because they'd been gone so long, it was in the children's best interest to remain with their mother and return from where they were just ordered from. Needless to say, I was floored when I heard those words. I knew that once they were gone, I would never see or hear from my children ever again. And I was right. The mother failed to obey any of the court's orders, and finally, after 4 contempt hearings, modification was made, and I was granted sole custody of both my children back in 2011. The mother was again ordered to return them, but she failed to comply with this order as well. I would spend the next several years fighting to be in their lives again as an alienated and left behind parent. As you can see, I know the pain and heartache this type of emotional abuse brings to all targeted parents and their children. And I'm hoping to reach those who don't understand what we go through after our children are ripped out of our lives. Now, with that being said, I'd like you to know that looking back, I don't think I ever went a single day in the first few years when I actually felt like a normal human being. It was almost like all the joy and happiness I once knew was sucked right out of me. The smile, the laughter that once came so naturally had all but disappeared. Instead, they were now replaced with a sense of fear and heartache and wrapped around about 100 other emotions all at the same time. I even found myself disassociating with my longtime friends because I was afraid of what they might say or think of me or even give pity when I really didn't want it. All I really needed during those times was to have my children back in my life again. Now, if these things I'm describing sound at all familiar, it's because they're very real to the moms and dads who are going through this aspect of parental alienation. Sadly, like many of you, this would become a journey I never wanted to be on. Instead, I'd find myself fighting one battle after another in my many attempts to have a chance of hearing my kids' voices again, or even give them a hug and say, I love you. Unfortunately, these wishes were only met with the stiffest of resistance on behalf of my former spouse because of her insane desire for revenge over a failed relationship. You see, unbeknownst to me at the time, I had married a parental alienator who did everything that she could to make me pay a horrible price. As such, she made sure to use the one tool in her arsenal that she knew would hurt me the most, and that was my children. Much like yourself, I was subjected to the most immense emotional torture ever imagined for any parent. It was during these times I was denied the right to be a father to my children. I wasn't able to speak with them or even hear their voices. And photos of them, well, let's just say they were non existent. I was slowly being erased from the lives of my children without even knowing how to stop it from happening. It was during my years as an alienating parent that I lost out on their most formative years and memories that were never created. I miss seeing my daughter lose her first tooth, waving to her as she got on the school bus for the first time, and even taking the training wheels off her bicycle. These are just a few of the memories we were denied due to the alienation that was in our lives. Also, I think about all the birthdays and the holidays we weren't able to enjoy together as a parent and child. I wasn't able to smile with her or laugh with my daughter when she was happy or wipe away her tears when she was sad. When I think about these missed moments, I can only hang my head in sorrow and think how much this must have affected her as well. When my daughter and stepson were first abducted internationally by their mother, I was the lost soul searching for the hidden meaning of why they were no longer in my life and I in theirs. The answer would never come, and I was left to wonder if I'd ever see them again. As the days turned into weeks and then into months and finally into the years, I was able to slowly regain part of who I once was. Instead of being in a constant state of misery, I was able to tap into a small portion of the happiness I once knew. Though my children were still missing in my life, I was able to finally move forward in the other aspects of my day to day living. Now, finally, the time had arrived when I realized there was an army of alienated parents all around the world who were suffering just like me. Because I had already started the process of healing, I wanted to find a way to let others know they weren't alone in their fight to bring their children home again. With this desire in mind, I decided to start writing what I would later call reflection articles and post them on my Facebook page called Hopeful Father. Now, these postings became an important tool in the continuance of my personal healing. I was able to put into words everything I was feeling, from the betrayal, the pain, the loss of love from my children, the struggles, and so much more. Over the course of time, I would find out that everything I was posting on social media was nothing more than a mirror to what other alienated parents were feeling as well. Now, before I knew it, I had managed to gain a large following of alienated and left behind parents from all over the world. In the beginning, most were afraid to share their comments online whenever I posted a new reflection for fear their former spouse would find out about their association with certain online groups and would use it against them in the family courts. Now, as time went along, these parents started to text me after they felt a level of trust with me. They were asking for my help, and many were requesting I call or email them, which I did. Mostly, they just wanted to speak with someone who really understood what they were going through, someone who would not question why this was happening to them or even judge them. They just wanted to know they weren't alone, and I did my best to reassure them of this. Now, you should know that alienated and left behind parents are a very selective group of people whom they tend to trust only others, of the same nature because of the betrayal they felt from the person who once professed to love them. Because of this, they may come across in a very cliquish or clannish fashion and are open to people who share similar experiences as them, but not with others. Now, this is because we alienated parents all belong to the same club. Unfortunately, it's not one of our own choosing or that we voluntarily signed up for. Instead, we were forced to join it through no choice of our own and only wish to forever escape it. Though I'm still a member of this club, I found a way to help me navigate through the trenches of parental alienation. In doing so, I learned each of us has the power inside to find peace and meaning as we journey down this terrible road. Some will find travel as a means of escape, or painting, or others even exercise. For myself, I've chosen a path of writing and helping others in their quest to find normalcy again. However, I'm now at the point of going one step further in my endeavors by sharing my messages in the form of video on a YouTube channel titled A Parenting Affair. This allows me to communicate more directly with those who would rather watch and listen to a living voice as opposed to reading the written words of the messages that I've put out there. However, during this same period of time, I also launched a new blog of the same name called A Parenting Affair, which will be up and running this week and allow alienated parents and their children to access various resources and articles to help them along the way. Now, having said this, it's worth mentioning that if you do find yourself as a victim of parental alienation or your children have been abducted by your former spouse, there's various resources out there to assist you. I urge you not to do things totally on your own. Instead, reach out and rely upon the professionals who are experienced and are able to help. This could be anyone from reputable attorneys who are knowledgeable in the area of parental alienation to therapists who are able to help you overcome any emotional struggles you may be experiencing, or even others who've gone down this before you. Additionally, you can find a wealth of information on the internet if you're willing to do the research. You may also wish to seek out meetup groups in order to network with other folks in your area. You can even join one of the many Facebook groups whose focus is parental alienation or left behind parental groups. In them, you'll be able to see what others are posting. You can post on it yourself. You can read their responses and even hook up with other like-minded individuals in the meantime. The main thing is you're not alone, and there are many private folks and professionals who are more than willing to help guide you in your struggles to be in your children's lives again. In conclusion, I'll end this video with one of my many reflections for you to enjoy. Now it's called Just Imagine. As a left behind parent and alienated, I fully understand the mental and emotional turmoil that embroils each of us daily. We were betrayed by a former spouse in their pursuit to hurt us after a failed relationship. As a result, we don't have our children, and our children don't have us. Further, many times the family courts have aided and abetted these wrongful deeds. The worst part is, our children are taught to forget who we are and even hate us for loving them as a parent. They lose half of who they are in the process, half of who they can become, and half of the love and support they could have enjoyed. An alienated parent is nothing more than an abuser and doesn't care about the best interests of our children. Instead, they use them as pawns in the war to hurt us. When our system turns a blind eye to the factual evidence placed before them during the most extreme familial circumstances, innocent people do suffer, and justice, well, it's denied for all. If the world ever wakes up from its slumber, perhaps positive changes will appear, and our children are able to smile again. Parents and extended family members will also be able to find the peace that's been ever so elusive. No one should ever be subjected to this type of torture. As we move forward in the beginning, of the new year. I hope things change for the better for all of us. Until then, I can only just imagine. Now, if you enjoyed this video or my reflection I just read, I'd like to ask you to click on the like button and hit the subscribe tab below to watch my future videos on parental alienation. While you're at it, feel free to use the share button to invite others so they're able to understand what we're going through after losing our children. Lastly, you can find us on Facebook or on our blog called A Parenting Affair. You'll find the links below in our comments section. You can even check out the books that we have that I've written recently. We look forward to hearing from you very soon and having you watch our future videos.